Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a shower pan flood test. So we followed the manufacturer's instructions for the Redgard, and we applied about 2 coats on the walls and about 4 coats on the shower pan itself. After that, I inspected all of the edges and the corners to make sure that I didn't see any cracks or pinholes. If you see any of those, you're going to want to touch them up and allow that to cure fully before we actually do the flood test. The test itself involves plugging the drain, filling it up as high as you can with water, and then letting that sit for about 24 hours to see if the water level changes. You can use either this pneumatic style plug. I really like this specific brand because it can adapt from a 1.5 inch to a 3 inch wide pipe, and it has a lot of surface contact with the pipe itself. You'll also see there are these rubber plastic types for the wing nut. Those don't work nearly as well, but they may be an option, and they're definitely a lot cheaper. I'm just going to use a basic bike pump, and this has the same type of valve that your bike or your car does. And it'll expand quite a bit, so I'm going to try to stick it down as deep as I can. The instructions say 45 psi. That sound is the pressure relief valve, so we're at about 40 psi and I can hear the air going out, so we're good to go. All of these plugs come with a leash with a big handle to make sure that you don't lose your plug down the drain. Next, we'll just carefully fill it up. We chose to fill up our shower pan just using a 5-gallon bucket. You can also use a garden hose or something, as long as you can control it very carefully and try not to splash too much. It took us about 4 buckets full, maybe 15 gallons worth of water for our shower pan, which is about 30 inches by 60 inches. Okay, I think that's enough. We're about 1/2 inch from the top of this ledge, so I don't want to go any higher. Once the water stops rippling, I'm going to mark that line with a Sharpie. On first inspection, I'm looking to see if there's any bubbling come up, obviously if there's any major leaks, or if my plug wasn't set very well, we would see some bubbling. I don't see any, so that's a good sign. It's also possible that as this sits overnight, this leash could wick water, so I'm going to try to fold it up and carefully rest it on the edge so that it's not going to drip over and make us lose water. I'm carefully marking the water level with a Sharpie, and then we'll come back and check it later. We've now left the water in the shower pan for 2 nights. This is a more aggressive stress test than the shower is ever going to see during its normal use. So this is a good opportunity for us to find out if there's going to be any leaks before we add that tile. Just looking at it, I don't see any pinhole leaks. I don't see any sloughing off. If there's a really tiny leak, it might actually be difficult to see just visually, which is why we marked the water level before we started. And I'm looking at it and it looks like it's at the exact same level it was, so I don't think that there's been any leakage. You may notice that where the water is touching the Redgard, it turned pink again. That's about the color it was when it was freshly applied. You don't need to worry about that color change. That's really just the very surface level of the Redgard changing color, and through that multiple coats of Redgard, it's still completely waterproof, and it will dry back out and turn red once we drain the water out. The water level is exactly where it was before, so we know that there was no water leaking out. This test is so crucial because just visually a water pan may look great, but it's often difficult to just identify if there's a minor crack or pinhole or if something isn't seated perfectly well. This is a good check while this is still a rough and exposed area and easy to fix, versus if you put your tile over it and then 5 years down the road you notice that your subfloor is rotting. It's a lot more of a pain in the neck to fix. When doing this flood testing, if you notice that you have a pinhole leak anywhere, the easiest thing to do if you're using a liquid coating is just to drain it, let it dry, and then just patch up those individual areas. If you notice that maybe your waterproofing membrane is sort of bubbling up or seems damaged, you probably need to scrape and remove that area as well as possible and then recoat that area. If you're using a surface applied membrane, then most likely your leaks are going to be at a joint area, so you may have to redo those joints or just add an extra waterproofing layer over those joints. It's very common that when you fill this pan up, it looks totally fine, but then maybe your water level drops a little bit, that could mean that you have some sort of micro perforation that's allowing the leakage. And at that point, your really only option is to kind of do another coat over the entire pan. Hope you find the leak. It's also very possible that your leak is coming from the plug itself. So we use this pneumatic style plug because we know they're very reliable. If you're going to use the hard plastic type of wing nut, just keep an eye on that because those are much more difficult to get a watertight seal. Our specific device comes with a little pin to help with activating the drain. I think I have it buried too deep for that to work, so I'm just going to have to use either a pencil or my finger. After this drains completely, we're going to let it dry for about 24 We're going to let this dry out for about 24 hours before we start tiling. I want to make sure this is totally red, and then it'll be ready to go. I hope you found this video today helpful. If you did, we would appreciate a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.